Hey yo, this is Dash, and today we're going to be talking about net versus yield. Hey yo, this is Dash. Yeah! Alright, so I speak about this pretty regularly, and this is one of those questions that I get asked rather often. This is the question about how much food do I have to put in the smoker in order to get the amount of food that I have ordered, or the amount of food that the person has ordered. When I was first starting out doing my business, I was selling food basically via Instagram. I would cook, I would take pictures and take orders for the most part, and I would cook. So if I had orders for, let's say I had orders for 9 pounds of brisket, I knew that I was gonna need to cook 18 pounds of brisket, or put 18 pounds of brisket into the smoker in order for me to yield 9 pounds. It just got to the point where I knew that, oh, I started with a 14-pound brisket, I was able to sell 7.5 pounds, 8 pounds. So that's when I developed or understood that the amount of meat that I was putting in the smoker, there was a lot of loss. So that loss is basically your loss. So your starting weight versus your yield. I'll just make this easy for you. Brisket is about 50% yield. Pulled pork is about 55 to 60% yield. Chicken is about 75% yield. Again, from starting weight to finish weight. Now, it took me a long time to get to the point where I knew what those numbers were and could figure them out. There were times when I would sell food, or I would oversell something and I wouldn't have enough. And then, as opposed to someone being able to get 2.5 pounds of brisket, they might have only gotten 2, so that I could stretch and have a pound or a pound and a half for that next order. Hopefully that makes sense. As I started doing more catering jobs and people were ordering a specific amount of meat, I had to better estimate my pre-cooked weight versus my yield, as opposed to when I was selling food via Instagram. I would cook a brisket, I would slice everything up, I would put it in pans and containers, and then I would have each container would be a pound container, or I would have a 2-pound container and a 1.5 pound container. So let's say I had a 7-pound brisket, excuse me. Let's say I cooked a 14-pound brisket and yielded 7 pounds. So I would take 3 of those pounds and they would be separate pounds. Okay, so we got 3 pounds, and then that leaves me 4.5 pounds of brisket left. I would take and make 1 2-pound container, and then I would also make a 1 2.5 pound container. I had some of my regular supporters, they would order 2 pounds at a time, 2.5 pounds at a time, and then I had other people who would just order 1 pound here, 1 pound there. So I knew to cater to my audience, and I packaged the food to sell because of the way that people were ordering. Now, as far as pulled pork and the chicken, I would package those up in 1/2 pound tubs. If you guys see in the beginning of the video, when in my intro, those clear containers, those are where I would put the brisket, and those little cups are where I will put pulled pork and pulled chicken. The pulled pork and pulled chicken, those are 8-ounce cups, so it works out to be a 1/2 pound per container, and those were very good at, 1, keeping the food very fresh, and 2, for portion control. So when people were ordering, I would say, all right, you know, it was for pulled pork, you can get a 1/2 pound, you can get a pound, you can get a 1.5 pounds, you can get 2 pounds, you can get as much or as little as you like. So it was just a matter of putting it in a package where folks could consume it. Now, as far as chicken wings, you're selling wings by the piece. Baby back ribs, I sold baby back ribs by the piece. Lamb, I sold that by the pound. Lamb did not have as a drastic of a yield from the pre-cooked weight to a yield. I think the lamb is probably about 70-75% as well. Just pretty much up there with the chicken. It does not lose much of its weight after cooking, which is a great thing because lamb is rather expensive. Salmon, I sell salmon in whole fillets, and I think that covers pretty much all of the different meats that I cook. Brisket, again, is like a 50% loss. Pulled pork, again, is about a 50% loss. Chicken, I normally do boneless, skinless, thighs, and breast. You know, pull it by hand. I just squeeze it up and then I chop it to make it a little bit smaller, so it's pulled and chopped, or you know, crushed and chopped. I don't know. I work technicality, but chicken is about a 75% yield, and the other meats, with the exception of lamb, are sold by the piece or whole. So hopefully that helps out. This is another one of those great questions. If you have any more questions about this particular topic, please make sure you leave it down in the description below. Thank you as always for watching. If you haven't already, please do subscribe. I'd appreciate some feedback, so please let me know how this series, or how you liking this series. If you like what you saw today, if you learned something, please leave me a thumbs up down below. And last but not least, I'll see you guys next time.